Where the desert meets the sky, where coyotes howl at night, there rode a man with a weathered hat. His grip on truth was tight. He stopped beside an old oak tree, his rifle by his side, when came a voice all slick and smooth, from shadows it did glide. The devil stepped from ash and smoke in boots of snake and flame. He tipped his hat and grinned real wide, "I think you know my name. I've watched you ride these dusty roads, and boy, you've done just fine. But I can make you king of kings, just sign this here dotted line." But the man said, "No, I've got what I need, a loyal horse and a pasture to feed. Keep your gold, your diamonds and chrome. I've got my saddle, my sky, and my home." Then Satan waved his fiery hand, a mansion did appear, with fancy cars and silver bars and wine instead of beer. "Just think," he said, "no work, just play, you'll live like royalty." But the cowboy shook his head and said, "That ain't for me. I've got a rancho built with my own hands, a faithful horse and some honest land. You call that poor, but I call it free. You keep your palace, I've got all I need." So the devil snapped and beauty came, 100 women fair, with ruby lips and velvet skin, all tossing golden hair. "You'll never want for love again, just take this little deal." But the cowboy smiled and tipped his hat, "I'll tell you what is real. I've got a woman who stands by my side, 2 little kids with their mama's eyes. You offer lust, but I've got love, more precious than what you're dreaming of." The devil snarled and raised his hand, now power filled the air. "Command the world, make kings obey, let people stop and stare. With just one word you'll rule them all, they'll tremble at your name." But the cowboy spit and shook his head, "That ain't my kind of fame. I've got friends who ride through thick and thin. They don't bow down, but they still chip in. You offer fear, I've got respect. You deal in chains, I ride unchecked." Then the wind picked up and the devil froze, his fire turned to frost. He'd tempted men 1,000 times, but now he'd met the cost. The cowboy tipped his weathered brim and stared into the flame. "You deal in lies and shiny things, I live by a better name. So take your riches and take your crown, take your cities and flash in town. I've got a sky that never ends, a heart that's true, and a few good friends." And as he rode into the dust beneath the painted sky, the devil faded in the dust. No deal, no last goodbye. For every gift the cowboy owned was from the Lord above. No mansion, gold, or fleeting power could match a life in love. He said, "Your riches turn to rust, your promises grow cold, but what I've got was heaven sent, and that can't be bought or sold. You tempt with smoke, but I've seen light, and all I had was given right."
When Daddy he died, he left me more than cattle and the land. He left me with his enemies and blood upon my hands. The lawyer read the will that day, said, son, it's yours to keep, but didn't mention all the ghosts that haunt a man's sleep. Old Jake McGraw came riding up with thunder in his eyes. He said, your daddy owed me blood, and now it's time to pay the price. He killed my brother 20 years ago beside the creek. Now I've come to settle up, it's your blood that I seek. But I said, no, I won't pay for his sins. I never pulled that trigger, never let the violence in. You want revenge for what he's done, then dig him from his grave. But I won't die for daddy's crimes, I've got my own life to save. Then Sarah Bell came to my door with tears upon her face. She said, your father promised me he'd give my son a place. But when the boy came asking for the job that should be his, your daddy ran him out of town. Now tell me what this is. I said, ma'am, I'll make it right, give your boy what he's owed. I can't change what daddy did, but I can change this road. The sins of fathers don't have to fall upon their sons. I'll break this chain of bitterness before my race is run. The preacher came on Sunday morning, said, son, you should know, your daddy never paid his debts to those he hurt below. The widows and the orphans that he left along his way, they're looking to his bloodline now to make them whole someday. I stood upon my daddy's grave and spoke into the wind. Oh man, you left me quite a mess, but here's where it ends. I'll pay the debts that honor pays, but not the ones of hate. I'll choose my own inheritance, it's not too late. I'll take your land and take your name, but not your bitter heart. I'll build something better here, give this town a brand new start. The blood that runs through my veins doesn't have to run the same. I'll write my own story now, I'll make my own name. Now the ranch runs cattle still, but different than before. I hired Sarah's boy to work and opened up my door to anyone who needs a chance to make an honest way. 'Cause blood inheritance ain't just what your daddy had to say. Jake McGraw still rides by sometimes, but he don't stop to fight. He sees I'm not my father's son, I'm walking in the light. The past is buried with the dead, the future's mine to choose. And I won't let my daddy's sins be chains I'll never lose.
"20 years behind those walls, 20 years to think about the night I lost my way and fell off freedom's brink. The gate swung open yesterday, I walked into the sun with nothing but a bus ticket and the damage I had done. The highway stretched before me like a ribbon made of doubt, each mile marker counting down the years I'd been without. My daughter was just 5 years old when they took me away. Now she's got kids of her own. What am I gonna say? This is the road to forgiveness, paved with tears and time. Every step's a prayer that love can heal this heart of mine. I've paid my debt to justice, but the hardest debt to pay is earning back the trust I threw away. I stopped beside a diner where we used to eat on Sundays. The waitress looked familiar, but she'd aged in all the ways. She said, "You look like someone that I used to know back when, but that man's been gone so long, he ain't coming back again." This is the road to forgiveness, longer than I thought. Some bridges can't be mended, some love can't be bought. I've got to prove I'm different than the man I used to be before anyone will set my heart free. I reached the old house by evening, saw the lights were burning bright. My daughter's car was in the drive. Lord, give me strength tonight. I knocked upon the door I used to walk right through with pride. She opened it and saw me there, and tears filled up her eyes. She said, "I wondered if you'd come, I wondered if you'd care. I've got so much to tell you, and so much hurt to share. But Mama always said that love is stronger than the pain. So come inside, we'll start again. Let's walk through the rain." This is the road to forgiveness, and it starts right here tonight, with a daughter's arms around me and her children holding tight. The past can't be forgotten, but the future's ours to write. On the road to forgiveness, everything's gonna be alright. Now I work down at the lumber yard, earn my keep each day, and every evening I come home to hear my grandkids play. The road to forgiveness ain't easy and it ain't ever done, but with family by your side, it's a race that can be won. My daughter says, "Dad, welcome home. We've missed you all these years. The man who left ain't who came back. That much is crystal clear. You've walked the road to forgiveness, and you've made it to the end. Now let's build something beautiful where broken hearts can mend."
The neon sign was flickering in Murphy's bar tonight. I took my usual corner stool beneath the amber light. The bartender knew my story well. He poured without a word 3 fingers of the medicine for pain that can't be cured. She used to wait up for me when I'd stumble through that door, with coffee and forgiveness like she'd done 100 times before. But pride's a poison in a man that slowly kills his soul. I chose my stubborn ways instead of letting love take control. Now it's just whiskey and regret keeping me company tonight, drowning in the memories of when I had it right. She said she loved me, said she'd stay, but I pushed her away. Now whiskey and regret are all I've got to pay. The second glass went down like fire, burned away the lies. I told myself she'd come back home, but saw it in her eyes. The night she packed her suitcase and said she'd had enough, I was too damn proud to beg her, thought I was too tough. Now it's just whiskey and regret, sitting at this bar, watching other couples dance while I'm falling apart. I had a woman who believed in me, but I let her slip away. Now whiskey and regret are all I've got to do. The third shot made me honest, made me see the truth at last.
that love ain't about winning, it's about forgetting the past. She needed me to hold her, not to prove that I was right, but I was fighting ghosts and shadows in the middle of the night. The bartender said, "Last call, friend, it's time to close this place." I looked into the mirror and I barely knew my face. The man who used to love her was buried in this glass, and all the whiskey in the world can't bring back what has passed. So I'll finish this whiskey and leave regret behind. Tomorrow I'll go find her and try to change her mind. I'll tell her that I'm sorry, that I know I was wrong, that whiskey and regret ain't where a man belongs. I walked out in the morning with the sunrise on my face and headed to her sister's house. My heart began to race. She was sitting on the porch swing with a coffee in her hand. She looked up when she saw me, said, "I hoped you'd understand. I've been waiting for you, darling, to come back to me. I knew you'd find your way here when you learn to see that love ain't about being right, it's about being true. And I've been saving all my love to give it back to you."
There's an old man sits beside the creek where the willows bend and sway. He's been there since the sun came up, he'll be there all the day. His hands are rough, his back is bent, his eyes have seen it all. Young folks come to ask him things when they're about to fall. A young cowboy came riding up, his heart was full of pain. He said, "Old man, I've lost my love, will I see her face again? She left me for a richer man with gold and fancy clothes. Now I'm thinking about revenge, and that's the way it goes." The old man said, "Son, sit a spell, let me tell you what I know. Time's a river flowing fast, but wisdom's waters flow slow. You can't hold on to yesterday, tomorrow's yet to come, but the choices that you make today will echo when you're done." I was young and hot like you, thought my fist could solve it all. I fought every man who crossed me, stood proud before the fall. But fighting never brought me peace, just scars upon my soul. The only way to win at life is learning self-control. Listen close, young cowboy, to an old man's hard-earned truth. Love ain't something you can force, and neither is your youth. If she chose another man, then let her have her way. Real love will find you when you're ready for that day. The young man said, "But how do I forget the pain inside?" The old man smiled and shook his head. "Son, you don't have to hide. Feel the hurt, but don't let it turn your heart to stone. Sometimes the greatest strength is learning to be alone."
I've buried 3 good women, and I've raised a dozen kids. I've seen the best and worst of life, done things I wish I never did. But every scar has taught me something, every tear has made me wise. The secret is to keep your heart open to surprise. So ride on, young cowboy, with your head held up high. Don't waste your years on hatred, don't spend your time to cry. Be kind to those who hurt you, forgive but don't forget, and you'll find that old man's wisdom is the best advice you'll get. The young man tipped his hat and rode off toward the setting sun. The old man watched him disappear, his teaching day was done. He'd planted seeds of wisdom in a heart that was ready to grow, and that's the greatest gift that any old man can bestow. Years later, that young cowboy came back to that same creek. Now he was old and weathered, with wisdom he could speak. He sat down by the water where the willows bend and sway, ready to share his knowledge with the young folks of today.
The station clock was striking 12, the platform cold and bare. A man stood with a cardboard case and silver in his hair. He'd lost his job, his wife, his home, his pride had turned to shame. But tonight he'd catch the last train out and start his life again. The ticket man looked up and said, "Where you headed, friend?" The stranger smiled and shook his head, "Wherever this line ends. I've burned my bridges, paid my debts, got nothing left to lose. Just give me passage on that train, I'll let the rails choose. This is the last train leaving town tonight, carrying broken dreams into the fading light. I've got my ticket and my traveling song, been standing still too long, it's time to move along." A woman on the platform cried, her baby in her arms. She'd heard her husband took this train to flee his gambling harms. The stranger tipped his weathered hat and said, "Ma'am, don't you weep. Some men run from what they've done, some run to what they see. This is the last train leaving town tonight. Some folks chase the darkness, some folks chase the light. We've all got reasons for the roads we choose. Sometimes you've got to lose before you win, before you lose." The whistle blew, the engine roared, steam filled the midnight air. The stranger climbed aboard and found an empty seat to share. He pulled a letter from his coat, read it one last time, then tore it up and let it fall like snow upon the line. Through the window past the glass, the town lights disappeared, and with them went the weight of all the things he'd always feared. The conductor came and punched his ticket, asked him for his name. He said, "Just call me passenger, we're all the same on this train." This is the last train leaving town tonight. Take taking us from who we were into the morning light. The rails stretch out like silver hope beneath the starry dome. Sometimes you've gotta leave to find your way back home. When the sun rose on the prairie and the train began to slow, the stranger saw a little town he'd never seen before. He grabbed his case and stepped outside, breathed in the morning air, and for the first time in years he felt like he belonged somewhere. The station master asked his name as he walked toward the street. He said, "I'm just a man who took the last train to be free. Yesterday's gone like morning mist, tomorrow's yet to come, but today I'm standing on solid ground, my running days are done."
She stood there in her wedding dress, white as morning snow, while I was counting poker chips in a saloon below. I'd promised her I'd change my ways, give up the cards and drink, but old habits die hard, and I was standing on the brink. The preacher waited at the church, the guests were in their seats, but I was chasing one more hand, ignoring my heartbeats. The dealer smiled and dealt the cards. I saw my lucky break, but didn't know the choice I'd make would be my last mistake. Broken promises are like shattered glass. They cut you deep and the pain will last. I had her love right in my hand, but I threw it all away for a losing plan. Her father came to find me there. His face was red with rage. He said, "Boy, she's been waiting there like a bird inside a cage. You made a vow to love and honor, to be there by her side, but here you sit with whiskey breath while she's still waiting for her bride." Broken promises are chains that bind. They lock you up inside your mind. I had a chance to make it right, but I chose the darkness over light. I stumbled to the church at last, but found the doors were closed. The flowers scattered on the ground, the story had been told. She'd taken off her wedding dress and walked away alone, left me standing in the rain with a heart turned into stone. Years have passed since that dark day. I've wandered far and wide, searching for redemption and a place to hide my pride. But every town I ride into, I hear the people say, "There goes the man who broke his word on his wedding day." Broken promises follow you wherever you may go. They're written in
promises are all I have to pay. I heard she married someone else, a good and honest man, who keeps his word and loves her true the way I never can. Sometimes I see them in the town, walking hand in hand, and I remember what I lost when I couldn't take a stand. The cards still call my name at night, the whiskey burns my throat, but nothing hutches knowing I'm the one who broke the sweetest promise ever made beneath the starry sky. Now broken promises are all I have until I die.
Desert wind was howling through the canyon walls that night when Johnny rode his horse alone beneath the pale moonlight. He'd been running from the law for 7 days or more since he shot the man who killed his pa outside the general store. The sheriff's posse followed him across the burning sand, but Johnny knew these desert trails like the back of his hand. He stopped beside a water hole to let his horse drink deep when he heard the voice of conscience that wouldn't let him sleep. The desert wind keeps calling, boy, you can't outrun the past. The choices that you've made will catch you up at last. You can ride until the sunrise, you can hide behind the stone, but the desert wind will find you and you'll face it all alone. A rattlesnake was coiled up beside the water's edge. Johnny drew his gun but stopped before he made his pledge. He said, "Snake, we're both just creatures trying to survive, but killing ain't the answer if you wanna stay alive." The desert wind keeps whispering, there's wisdom in that thought. Some battles ain't worth fighting, some wars just can't be fought. The man you killed was evil, but revenge won't set you free. The desert wind knows justice and it's calling out to me. By morning, Johnny made his choice. He turned his horse around and headed back to face the law in his old hometown. The sheriff met him at the gate, his gun drawn at his side. Johnny raised his hands and said, "I got nothing left to hide." The judge was fair, the jury true. They heard his story told, how his father died defending what was worth more than gold. They said, "Son, we understand the pain that drove you wild, but justice must be served even for a grieving child." The desert wind was silent when they led him to his cell, but Johnny felt a peace inside that words could never tell.
He'd faced the truth, he'd paid the price. His conscience now was clear. The desert wind had taught him what he needed most to hear. 5 years later, Johnny walked out free into the sun. The desert wind was waiting there to greet him when he's done. It whispered, "Boy, you've learned the way to be a righteous man. Now ride back to the desert and live free while you can." He mounted up his faithful horse and rode into the day. The desert wind behind him seemed to blow his guilt away.
They said she was an angel in a pure white Sunday dress. Never missed a service, never caused her daddy stress. Sarah May, the preacher's girl, with ribbons in her hair. Every young man in the county wished that she would care. I was just a drifter with a horse and worn out boots. Came to town for water and some gambling with the fruits. Saw her by the chapel when the evening bells would ring. Thought I'd try my luck with such a sweet and holy thing. But the preacher's daughter ain't what she appears to be. She's got fire in her spirit and a wild heart running free. While the town folks see an angel, I can see behind her eyes. The preacher's daughter's got some secrets and some dangerous goodbyes. She met me by the river when the moon was hanging low. Said, "Cowboy, you look restless, got some places you could go." I said, "Miss, I'm not the type your daddy wants around." She laughed and said, "My daddy ain't the wisest man in town." Turns out she'd been planning her escape for near a year. Had money saved and routes mapped out, had shed her holy fear. She said, "I've been watching outlaws, learning how they ride. I don't wanna be his daughter, I wanna be your guy." 'Cause the preacher's daughter ain't the girl they think they know. She can handle any pistol, and she's ready now to go. While her daddy's preaching virtue from his pulpit every day, his daughter's been preparing for her own outlaw way. She pulled a gun from underneath that pure white Sunday dress. Said, "I robbed the bank this morning, made a calculated mess. I left the money on your horse. We better ride tonight, 'cause the sheriff will be coming with the early morning light." I stared at this sweet angel who had turned the tables round. She'd made me the accomplice without making any sound. She said, "Don't look so worried, I've been planning this for weeks. You're either riding with me or you're turning yellow streaks." Now the preacher's daughter leads our gang across the plains. She's smarter than her daddy, and she's got ice in her veins. They're still looking for that sweet girl in the pure but she's long gone with the outlaws, and she's better than the rest. The wanted posters show her face, but they got the story wrong. They say she was corrupted by some drifter's devil song. But I know the truth of what went down that Sunday night. The preacher's daughter saved herself and taught me wrong from right. She said sometimes the biggest
The asphalt stretches endless, like the valley of dry bones. My headlights cut through darkness, illuminating stones. Each mile marker's counting down the years upon my soul, while phantoms of my past arise to make my spirit whole. A taxman counts his silver on the shoulder of the road. The man I robbed in Abilene still carries his heavy load. I see the widow weeping whom I helped when times were lean, her gratitude still glowing in this midnight highway scene. On the highway of the haunted, where the living meet the dead, I'm driving through my lifetime with these voices in my head. Some call out for forgiveness, some whisper words of grace. The ghosts of the highway know every soul has found its place. There's beggars by the wayside that I fed beside the track, and betrayers counting silver with their conscience at their back. The rich burn in the distance while they're asking heaven why, as patriarchs and angels light up the starry sky. I see the scarlet woman at the well of living stone, who found her flowing water when she thought she was alone. She points toward the horizon where redemption's light appears, beyond the veil of shadows and this valley full of tears. On the highway of the haunted, where the wheat meets with the tares, I'm sorting out my harvest through a lifetime full of prayers. The sheep are on my right hand, goats are scattered on my left, but mercy's in the middle for a soul that's been bereft. Like Jacob, I've been wrestling with the angel through the night. My hip is out of socket, but I will not lose this fight. I've walked through fiery furnace with 3 friends beside my side. I've been thrown into the lion's den with nowhere left to hide. Daniel found his courage in the belly of the beast, and Jonah learned that mercy flows from greatest unto least. Like Paul upon Damascus when the scales fell from his eyes, I see that every sinner can be blessed and sanctified. On the highway of the haunted, I can see the promised land, where the crooked will be straightened by the Maker's gentle hand. The first shout every soul can quench its thirst. The sun breaks on the mesa as I reach the journey's end, where Alpha meets Omega and all broken hearts can mend. I park beside